Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Ben No, and Sen is spending some time with nature, so he won't be joining us this week. Okay, so last week we see the release of 2 sequels and a movie based on a popular MMO video game. So we have The Conjuring 2, which is the sequel to 2013's Conjuring. It's a horror movie directed by James Wan. He returns to direct the sequel. And then there is the sequel to 2013's Now You See Me. It's kind of like a thriller heist movie with a bunch of actors like Jesse Einsberg, Morgan Freeman, Woody Harrelson, Mark Ruffalo. You see a couple of them returning. Instead of Isla Fisher, she is replaced by Lizzie Kaplan. So we'll see how those movies did over the weekend. Starting at the number 1 spot is The Conjuring 2. It pulled in about $40.4 million over the weekend, which is about where the first movie did open to. The first movie opened to about $41 million. It went on to gross $318 million worldwide, 137 of that domestic. So it is a hugely successful movie considering that the production budget is only $20 million. They doubled the budget for the sequel, $40 million, and they gross about where it is. And right now, worldwide, the gross is at $91 million. So it's doing quite well considering it's a sequel and it didn't drop at all. Not a very significant drop off from the first movie. An intelligent horror movie, hey, there's still a market for this. It's not the typical Jason Blum cheapy horror movie. And it seems like James Wan knows what he's doing. I said the movie would probably grow open to 30 to 35 million. Sen is very bullish on the movie. He said 50 million, considering the first movie opened to about 41. He's betting that people would want to watch the sequel, that gain additional audience with the first movie. I'm saying, sequels are kind of weak right now in this year, and I think it'll take a dip, but it opened about to where we had it. It's above my 30 to 35 range, and it's below his Sen's 50 million range. So it did quite well considering even though they doubled the budget, it's still going to be a very profitable movie for Warner Brothers and James Wan. So Conjuring 3 in the works. Hey, looking at the numbers, you can bet that's happening. Okay, coming in number 2 is the movie that we all like to be down on. Is Warcraft. It's the CGI extravaganza directed by Duncan Jones, who has a couple of indie movies to his name like Moon, Source Code, and right now his third movie, Warcraft. He's hired to direct this big budget movie. Even though he has indie cred, given that Warcraft might seem like an interesting choice for him, because before it was all these low budget movies. Now he upped the budget. The budget for Warcraft is 160 million, so that's a lot of dough for someone who has only 2 movies to his name. But hey, if you have the chops to direct these type of movies, doesn't really matter. And it didn't open that well. It only opened to about 24 million over the weekend. We both weren't high on the movie, Sen and I. I said it'll probably do between 30 to 35 million opening. Sen said 10. He's very low. He didn't like the movie. It opened to 24. But the thing is, it did extremely well overseas. Overseas, it made, worldwide, it grossed 306 million already. And a lot of that is in China, which grossed over 100 and probably 60 million as of this podcast right now. That's huge. And the reason why it grows so huge in China is because the movie is produced by Legendary Pictures, and Legendary Pictures right now is owned by a Chinese company, Wanda Group. As with most big Chinese companies, they're partially state-owned, and Wanda owns a lot of theaters in China, and so they can get their movie out there, and they can pretty much guarantee success by being the only movie in those theaters. So that's why it's so huge in China. It might bomb here, 26 million on a budget of 160 million domestic, but it's not about the domestic market anymore. If you can be huge in China, you can be successful right now. The numbers are that China is going to overtake the US in total box office by 2017 or so. What we can guarantee is that even though it bombed here, worldwide is doing extremely well, especially in China, and a sequel is pretty much guaranteed. Okay, coming in number 3 is the Now You See Me sequel. It pulled in about 22 million over the weekend. The first Now You See Me movie opened to about 29 million and grossed 351 million worldwide. The sequel did a bit worse, 22 million. As we said in our preview in the last podcast, Now You See Me 2 is really a sequel for the sake of a sequel because the first movie did so well. They did another one. It's not a movie that people are clamoring for, so that's why you see a dip. And worldwide for Now You See Me 2 is about 48 million. Okay, coming in at number 4 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. It was the number 1 movie last weekend, but it dropped about 60% to pull in 14.3 million. The budget is 135 million, and the total domestic gross so far is 60 million. It's again a sequel that probably no one asked for. The first movie, because it was directed by Michael Bay, did extremely well. His name alone garnered a huge budget, but the sequel opened to about 35 million on a budget of 135. Worldwide figure right now is 119 million. I'm not sure if there will be a third Turtles movie because it really depends on the China take now, right? Because it hasn't opened in China yet. And it's already grossed 119 million worldwide, and there's still some way to go for Turtles, but it looks like it's dropping soon on the domestic market. This movie will really make us money overseas, but we'll see if even the overseas market is interested in another Turtles movie. So I think for now, a sequel is, third Turtles movie is kind of out of the plans for Paramount. But we'll see where they take this from here. Or we see another reboot because the studios or these producers want to hold on to these properties and try to continuously milk it. Perhaps we'll see another reboot or to make it cheaper somehow. Because right now these movies are CGI and CGIs are expensive. So we'll see. Okay. Number 5 is X-Men Apocalypse. The movie is already in its third weekend, and it pulled in about 9.9 million. Experienced a highish 56% drop-off from the previous week. Let's see, the domestic gross right now is 136. The budget is 178. So it looks like this X-Men movie is not doing well. It's not holding up well in theaters, considering this is a tentpole. This is from Fox, and X-Men is their superhero movie franchise. They're going to try to spin off the various characters. Then the one that they're able to do is the Wolverine, and then recently Deadpool, right? But X-Men is their Avengers. X-Men is their really the movie that held everything together. But we'll see where they move on from here. From the look of things, it might be able to reach its budget domestic, but it's kind of falling out favor with the domestic audience right here. Overseas is doing 339 million for a worldwide take of 476. So again, the movie is helped out by the overseas market, but Fox needs to rejigger things here with the X-Men franchise to make people interested in these superhero movies, because it's a very lucrative market dominated by the Marvel movies. Warner Brothers has their own, the Batman, Superman, DC cinematic universe going on. They have Suicide Squad coming up next, and it looks like it's going to do well, with Will Smith heading up the cast. But X-Men I think is in trouble. Like I said, it's kind of like Spider-Man. It's on an island. I mean, there's only so many creatures of the week that you can do, or like monster of the year or whatever. How often they try to do this? They need a more compelling storyline to branch out of or to start off. So we'll see how they rejigger things. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're concerned with this take. I mean, X-Men Apocalypse is supposed to be their adventure movie. Apocalypse is this huge antagonist, like one of the most powerful X-Men villains in the X-Men universe, but it's not performing as well as people thought or hoped to do. So we will see. I say they will probably have to do something drastic with this, or maybe reboot, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, number 6 is Me Before You. It's the romance movie starring Emilia Clarke and Sam Claflin. The movie opened well. It did 18.7 million in its opening frame, and in the second weekend it pulled in about 9 million, about 51% drop off. The movie cost only 20 million to make, and so far in its second weekend, it pulled in about 36 million already, and looks like it's gonna I don't know, probably close around 50 million, which is pretty good for a one of these low budget movies. And worldwide is at 57 million. So this movie might not travel overseas. Well, it hasn't opened that wide yet overseas, so we will see its box office take. I mean, look, these kind of romance movies kind of will travel well overseas, unlike most comedies. Okay, 7 is the Angry Birds movie. Pulled in about 6.5 million over the weekend, experienced a 36% drop off, and so far it made about 98 million. The budget is 73, so it's doing well. No one expected this to do well. I mean, at least we didn't. We know that it would do well, but considering that it's a video game, it's a movie based on a video game, based on a mobile game that has its peak a couple years ago. But obviously, Angry Birds, it became a cultural phenomenon. It's cultural now. It's a brand that kind of went beyond the video game. It has its cartoon shows, web animated series. Its games are still not as popular as before, but it's still being installed on mobile devices. Yeah, and it's already in its 4th weekend, so it's gonna cross 100 million, and it's probably gonna stop at 120 or 25 domestic. So yeah, I think they're gonna make another one. Number 8 is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Yeah, no matter how you slice it, it's a bomb. The first Alice movie did extremely well because of Johnny Depp and the height of the 3D craze, started off by Avatar, etc. And the movie cost 170 million to make, and so far it only pulled in about 62 million. And comparison to another Disney high budget flop is Tomorrowland, and it's even behind that. So worldwide take for Alice Through the Looking Glass is 250 million. So yeah, it's not looking good. Again, Alice Through the Looking Glass exists because the first movie did so well, and people are not that big into 3D anymore. Before, it was kind of like a fad, it was something new. And the sequel, story-wise, people are not looking, like we said, not looking for a sequel. The story was done, and they tried to do another one, and this is the result. People are not returning to this movie. And yeah, you won't see another Looking Glass movie. Alright, so number 9 is Captain America Civil War. It put in about 4.3 million over the weekend, experienced a 45% drop off, and so far domestic it's at 396 million. Looks like it's gonna cross 400 million domestic. Let's see, a worldwide figure, it's 1.1 billion. When a movie crosses 1 billion, it's an extremely successful movie. And as we said, this is an Avengers light movie because of the of how many superheroes is in the movie. They have Spider-Man, they have Black Panther, they have Ant-Man, and various other, not the A-listers of superheroes, the Marvel heroes, but they're pretty good in itself. And Spider-Man is huge because Spider-Man, what Sony did to it or didn't do to it, and now Sony gave the property back to, well, not gave the property back, but kind of let Marvel handle the character, and so they can profit off. And now it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man is. Okay, so yeah, another huge successful movie is Captain America, Avengers Light, and it crossed 1 billion. So it's something that Batman vs Superman failed to do. Alright, wrapping up the top 10 is The Jungle Book, the new live action / CGI Jungle Book by Disney. 2.7 million over the weekend. The budget is 175 million, and so far it grossed 352 million. The worldwide figure is 911 million. Yeah, it's on the 1 billion watch. We'll see if it can cross 1 billion. It has about 90 million to go. We'll see if it can cross. It's on the $1 billion watch. And Warner Brothers is making their own Jungle Book movie, so we'll see how that one compares to Disney's version. Alright, let's move on to the new openings. We have 2 new openings. We have Central Intelligence. It's the comedy starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart plays an accountant who met up with his old high school buddy, played by Johnson. In high school, he was a fat dude, and now he is this chiseled CIA agent, man of action. And Kevin Hart is caught up in his line of work, and he needs protecting. It's one of his buddy comedies. And how will that do? I think this movie is going to be huge. Not as huge as Finding Dory, but it's going to be huge. If you look at Dwayne Johnson's solo efforts, St. Andreas is his largest opening with 54 million. The rest are rather pedestrian. I mean, his team-ups, like for example, the Fast and Furious movies, are more ensemble that did well. But for his solo efforts, where he is the obvious lead actor, St. Andreas recently was, his biggest opening with 54 million. So how well will Central Intelligence do? I mean, he's teaming up with Kevin Hart. He's the straight guy. I mean, he's the comedian to... I don't know, who is the straight guy? I mean, could it be... The Rock could do comedy. Kevin Hart obviously can do comedy, right? But he is playing kind of like the straight guy to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's wild and crazy, CIA guy who's not afraid to blow things up. And it's a PG-13 comedy, so it's going to be open wider to other people. In a sea of superhero movies, and there is an action comedy with no superhero characters, even though Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is playing Black Adam in WB's comic book hero movie. In this one, he is kind of a superhero himself, but he's not a superhero. Okay, I think this movie is going to open probably not as big as San Andreas. Okay, how about we give the movie a 40 million opening? 40 to 45, how about that? 40 to 45 million opening, because it looks funny, and buddy comedy usually does well if they have the right people. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a box office gold right now. He can be in anything, and it'll be successful, really. We're not talking huge blockbusters, but he can hold his own. And Kevin Hart proves that, with the various comedy team-ups, that he can do well as well. All right. And Finding Dory, the sequel to Finding Nemo. Ellen DeGeneres returns to play Dory, and also Albert Brooks for Marlin. Finding Dory is the sequel to a highly popular animated movie. Nemo had a 70 million opening back in 2003, which is like 90 million these days. And the movie nearly grossed 1 billion worldwide. In the sequel, Dory remember where she came from, her family, and she went out to look for, I guess, her family, yeah, basically. And it seems like their journey took them to kind of a theme park with various other sea creatures. So how well will it do? Like I say, 70 million back in 2003 is kind of like 90 million or 100 million these days. But the sequel, will people turn out for the sequel? Remember, Zootopia had an 80 million opening, but it hung around in theaters. It has a lot of staying power. Will Dory find a huge opening? Because it is based on a well-known, beloved movie. It is about the sea creatures, has all these different type of water creatures, essentially cameos. So will it open in the 80, 90 million range, 100 million range and hang in theaters, or it's going to be very front-loaded? Is it going to be 120 million plus opening like that? So we're talking about opening numbers here. What do you think? I have a feeling that it might have a rather lowish opening. Remember, Zootopia had an 80 million opening. Let's take a look at the opening for Pixar movies. So The Good Dinosaur had a 39 million opening. That was kind of like the low point for Pixar. Inside Out had a 90 million opening. Monster University had an 82 million opening. The only movie that opened above 100 million is Toy Story 3. And that is the third movie of a very beloved franchise. So, sequel to Finding Dory, it's probably gonna range somewhere between... it's not going to be The Good Dinosaur, because Finding Nemo has a more goodwill than The Good Dinosaur. People love the first movie. Inside Out, it's more wide-ish. I think it's going to open in the same ballpark as Inside Out. It's not going to be a Toy Story range. Surprised if it opened up in the... So let's do a conservative 90 million opening. Okay, I think it's going to end up in the 90 million range, and then if the story is good, I think it's going to have staying power. If not, then we'll see it go by way of The Good Dinosaur. But we will see, okay? So we have Central Intelligence and Finding Dory contending for the box office crown. And I think Finding Dory is going to take it because of the strong brand. Family, schools out. Central Intelligence is going to be no slouch either. The movies that suffer will be the new releases last weekend, and the other movies in theaters. We're going to see them drop. Okay, so that's it for now. Return next week, and thanks for listening.